We just want to go through a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Much of this should be very familiar for everyone. So first off, if you could please mute yourself. Secondly, rename. So if you haven't been a part of the calls previously, first name, last name, and at member organization. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, we'll have a point in time where you can be acknowledged to ask those questions, but you can also put some of the comments in the chat box. Next slide, please, Nicole. So with that, we will start with our member session. So providing our welcoming remarks is Lisa Bagan-Lurie, SSA President.
Thanks, Raheem. So on behalf of the Board of Directors and staff, I want to welcome everyone on the call tonight. We know many of you are busy now as you're returning to the field, and we appreciate you continuing to make the time to be on these calls. I also want to thank the SSA staff for continuing to make these calls possible. So 20 of our member organizations have now completed the Canada Soccer Risk Assessment Tool and either are back on the pitch or are planning to do so very soon. We applaud all of your organizations for your hard work and to get this step and for your continued commitment to player safety. As you begin your programming, we encourage you to remain engaged and continue to follow our weekly communications for updates because they are ever changing. Remember, we are available to support you and your organization during this time. With last week's government announcement, indoor sports can now commence, and tonight we will discuss what those guidelines will look like. And for those that offer indoor soccer and for those who offer indoor soccer and futsal. We also invite your participation as we open up the floor to hear about your experiences so far from returning to the pitch. Thank you for continuing to put participant safety first in your decision-making and for continuing to seek clarity when we don't have all the answers. With that, I will hand it back over to Raheem to go through our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. So in terms of the agenda, and I see a few people have joined us. So just again, to reiterate, if you can put in your first name, last name, and at member organization, that would be ideal. Please put yourself on mute until otherwise recognized to ask a question. So on agenda today, we're gonna provide an update on the Reopen Saskatchewan plan and some of the impacts on current return to soccer plans, some information regarding indoor guidelines, clarity on mini leagues, modifications to the laws of the game resulting in disciplinary sanctions, map grants, referee registration fees, inclusivity group, update on provincials, PSL, Soccer Day in Saskatchewan, and member organization updates. So with regards to the return to soccer plan, we're currently on the 4th edition of the plan. The document is dynamic and updated as new information comes available. Therefore, if you can link on your website or in the plan, please link to the COVID resource page and not the specific PDF, because as the PDFs get modified or changed or updated, you may be linking to an older version of that PDF. The last update to this was on July 3rd. Sorry, there's someone that needs to be muted. Nicole? Reminder on the phased-in approach. So this is just a brief timeline, and I think everyone should have seen it last member session as well. But obviously, the suspension of soccer activity on March 13th, return to train contactless training announcement, the return to train minimal contact training dates and timelines. Phase 3, the return to play with increased contact, and phase 4 we're still waiting for in terms of a future communication outlining a return to full contact. Over the past few member sessions, and when we first presented information about the return to soccer plan, and can be found within our return to soccer plan, as well as sort of the 6 steps for resuming soccer, we've completed steps 1 to 3, and each member organization then takes on step 4 to 6. As Lisa has said in her opening remarks, we have 20 member organizations that have completed the return to soccer assessment tool and are either delivering soccer or on their way to delivering soccer. So again, we would just like to commend all those that have taken on the or undertaken the process of returning to soccer to offer soccer to their members. In terms of the phases of resuming soccer, as we have also outlined, we're currently in phase 3, or member organizations have the option to participate in up to phase 3. However, every member organization can move through the different phases at their own speed. So whether a member organization is currently in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, that is obviously at the discretion of the member organization. We always recommend making sure that all safety protocols and measures are in place. So not to rush if it's not needed, but to make sure that we're putting the participants' safety first. The government guidelines were updated on June 28th. It's every organization's responsibility to be aware of any government guidelines and changes within them. Recently on July 6th, indoor sports was announced that they can commence, and government guidelines have been revised accordingly. So with regards to those indoor guidelines, the following guidelines are from the Reopen Saskatchewan plan. Wherever possible, activities should be relocated to outdoor settings. Facility ventilation systems should be operational and appropriate for the activities being practiced in them. Facilities may need to consider, for example, increasing air circulation and ventilation while preventing turbulent airflow, providing natural ventilation by opening windows and doors wherever possible to increase airflow. Additionally, remove unnecessary common items such as magazines or brochures, and encourage patrons to limit their time spent in the facility, as well as maintain physical distancing when returning to their vehicles or homes. Indoor play spaces are permitted. However, increased cleaning and disinfection are required. Operators must put measures in place to ensure physical distancing of non-household members and provide access to hand washing facilities or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer approved by Health Canada. And this can be discerned by the DIN or NPN number. Operators are also encouraged to post signage. Food and beverage services are subject to the restaurants and licensed establishment guidelines. Drinking fountains must be closed, but water bottle filling stations are acceptable if appropriately and frequently sanitized. And wherever possible, promote physical distancing by promoting one-way traffic flow to avoid individuals from inadvertently interacting, placing stickers or signage on the wall or floor every 2 meters, reducing capacity in each room or venue in the facility, and common area chairs and tables should be stacked, roped off, or removed from the area to promote distancing. With regards to clarity on mini leagues are a part of phase 3 of the Return to Soccer plan. SSA continues to follow the provincial government guidelines, and members can only participate in one mini league within SSA, as originally stated on June 26th when the phase 3 guidelines were released. Although it is not recommended that an individual participate in multiple sport mini leagues, the provincial government does not have restrictions for multi-sport athletes participating in mini leagues between sports. It's important to note that mini leagues aren't a requirement in all sports, only sports where physical distancing is not possible. If an individual is part of 2 SSA organizations and one is running a mini league, SSA Return to Soccer Plan Phase 3, while the other is practicing social distancing as per SSA Phase 1 Return to Soccer Plan, then that individual could participate in both. We recently received information from Canada Soccer regarding local organizations creating modifications to the laws of the game, resulting in players or team personnel receiving yellow or red cards for spitting on the field. When we make mention of local organizations, this is local organizations throughout many different PSOs across Canada. And what Canada Soccer would like to make sure everyone is aware of is modifications to the laws of the game that carry any disciplinary sanction enforced by the referee are not allowed, and therefore member organizations that wish to enforce no spitting or other COVID-19 specific rules should do so through education and other methods rather than red or yellow cards. This does not refer to spitting at someone, which is a red card offense. So an in-game scenario would be if a referee sees that a player is spitting on the ground, instead of brandishing a yellow or red card to that individual, because a yellow and red card in that situation isn't within the laws of the game specifically. What they are asking for is that play may be halted and the referee speaks with the coach to remove the athlete from the field. So instead of, again, a yellow or red card, it is a modification that's provided, and we can do so through educating the player. You should not be spitting, speak to the coach to remove the athlete from the field, and that provides the other method rather than using a red or yellow card. So with that, there's a lot of information covered pertaining to indoor guidelines, clarity on mini leagues, and also modification to laws of the game. We'll take a minute to pause and see if there are any questions. For anyone with questions, please raise your hand or write in the chat, and Nicole will be able to bring my attention to that. Hugh Dooley from QC.
Have they talked about number of players in an indoor facility yet?
As of right now, it would be whatever is currently the maximums. No other information has been provided. So I believe the indoor gathering limit at this moment in time is 30, as is the outdoor gathering limit.
30. Okay. The outdoor gathering limit hasn't gone up to 50?
Not yet, no. Or at least not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Perfect. Thank you, Hugh. Sean Riggs from Aurora. Sean, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, I'm just wondering about the two training group and the mini league. So, for example,
Okay.
I was talked to Zoller from Astra the other day.
Yep.
And the way that we both are structuring our programs is I have players in groups of 10 to 12 that's the only players they would ever come in contact with. His players are in groups of maximum of 15. So if my player was to do both Aurora and Astra, then the maximum players they could come into contact with is 27. Is that not allowed?
So which phase of the return to soccer plan are you working within right now?
Well, we're gonna phase into 3 by the end of the program, and I'm sure probably everyone is doing the same.
Okay.
I would assume.
My understanding of the specifics from, because I'd had a conversation with Chris earlier this week as well, is that they're planning on remaining in return to soccer plan phase 1. So socially or physically distant, like the sort of more isolated soccer. And because you or Aurora could be in phase 2 or phase 3, if that athlete is also part of an organization that is adhering to phase 1, which does have the physical distancing involved, they can do both.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, what if there's 2 organizations that are going into phase 2 or 3, but they're in training groups that the 2 training groups total would equal less than 50? Would that not be okay?
That would not be okay.
Why wouldn't it be okay?
So if you're going to be in phase 3, for example, then all those athletes are part of one mini league or mini group. Astra, if they were in phase 3, would have their own mini league or mini group. So that's something where they're 2 separate organizations, and therefore you can only, as per the information we have from the business response team, they should only be a part of one organization and one mini league and group.
So is the business response team from the provincial government?
They're the trade expert department that is responsible for answering any questions that organizations have as it pertains to questions regarding the government guidelines.
Okay, because it's just a little confusing that kids could play baseball, football, hockey, soccer, but then they can't do 2 soccer groups. That's why I question it. So
I totally understand that, and it's a part of the questions that we had posed to them, and their information. Nicole, do you mind going back to slide 14? Their information specific was that they do not have restrictions for multi-sport athletes participating in mini leagues between sports, only within individual sports themselves. But also mini leagues are specifically towards sports where physical distancing is not possible, and soccer is considered a sport where physical distancing is not possible. So if someone was to play golf, for example, it would be different than, Nicole, would you mind? Thanks. So if someone was participating in golf, for example, they would not be considered as a part of a mini league in golf, because it's an individual sport where physical distancing is possible.
Okay. So even if there was 10 kids in my entire program and 10 kids in another program, they wouldn't be able to do both if they go past phase 1.
That is our understanding, yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean. Hugh, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, a couple questions.
Sure.
So mini league is 50 players. So if I'm playing, say, 5v5 games and I've got 4 fields set up on a field with social distance between the fields, then those players can play at the same time, correct?
No. So the max. So a mini league is about the number of people that can interact in sort of more of a mini league fashion, but the maximum outdoor restrictions are still in place. So there would still only be 30 people allowed on a field at one time.
Okay. I'm going to ask that we go back to the business response, because what Sean is bringing up, I think, is a very valid point, only because I know that RMF football will be starting up here in August, and that's a tackle. And I've got lots of players that are going to be doing that and doing our soccer program. So Sean's point, I think, is a valid one to take back to them. Like if it's 2 soccer groups and it's still within those numbers, I think they should be asked that, because that doesn't make sense.
Raheem, I just have something to add here.
Sure.
We did go back to the business response team and asked about, it's in our frequently asked questions, about having 2 groups of 25 on one field. And they said that is possible as long as there's 5 meters in between the 2 groups. This would be for outdoor. So 50 max. And they would have to be within the same mini league, and both groups would have to be separated by at least 5 meters.
Okay. So that's that
Perfect.
one. I would suggest to go back to that one about what Sean is bringing up, because they're treating the sports, because once tackle football starts up here in Regina, which it will, look out.
So specific
I have half my club will be playing tackle football.
Yeah, so the way that they have provided the information is that there are no restrictions for multi-sport athletes participating in mini leagues between sports, meaning that they can participate in football and soccer, regardless of the level of contact. It's just the number of mini leagues. Like the restrictions are for mini leagues within our own sport, not between sports.
I think I understand that part of it. I get what they're saying there, Raheem, but I don't agree with the logic, because the logic doesn't make sense. If I have a mini league of 25 and there's another mini league of 25, we're still staying within that number. What's the difference if they're playing there or tackle football? So I think they're looking at the example of baseball that's starting up right now, because they consider that non-contact. But football is starting in 2 weeks. So I'm just throwing it out there. So
maybe I wasn't clear. Your athletes can play both football and soccer.
Oh no, I get that part.
Okay.
I'm just saying that part doesn't make sense, that they can't play in 2 mini soccer leagues if there's only 50 players involved, like the example Sean provided. Because I imagine that when they replied right now, they're only thinking about baseball, because they seem to be thinking about what's going on today, tomorrow, and not much further. But those kids are going to be in contact with tackle football, which is going to have the 50 players. So what's the difference if 2 soccer groups play that only have 50 players? It's apples and oranges to a degree, but I just think the question should be asked. That's all.
Sure. We've asked the question before, but we can certainly go back and see if we can find other ways to parse words to see if there's a different response that comes from them.
Yeah, just use the RMF football example, with football, not baseball.
Sure. Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks. Yep, you bet.
Wendy Wagner from Meridian.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I just am seeking clarification on field setup, and maybe I just misunderstood with the communication that was going on prior to. If we only, because I'm from Lloydminster, we only have one soccer park that we can use, which has 5 pitches on it. So does that mean that we can only run 50 players at one time, or can we have the distancing and run multiple fields at the same time?
Nicole, just correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe you're allowed to have 30 people per field at just in general to begin with, but the example Nicole spoke about would be you can have sort of you could have up to 50 players on a field provided there's 5 meters between them if they were playing matches. Is that correct, Nicole?
Right, yeah. Wendy, do you have 5 full-size fields?
We have 5 full-size fields.
Yeah, so you could have at least 30 people on each of those fields, or you could even split those fields into 2 for smaller fields, but only have 2 groups of 25 within one mini league.
Just as long as one field is like one set of numbers. Like we are going to stagger start, but I had stagger started mine using like alternating fields and groups. So that's why I was questioning. It was approved by our municipality to run it that way. I was just asking, just because the communication that was going on, I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. Yeah, I would say 30 on a field unless you have one mini league.
One group.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question, Wendy. Mike Gramiak from Eastside.
Thanks, Raheem. I wanted to pose to the SSA whether they could move their Friday releases to Wednesday instead of Friday, or someday in the middle of the week. What I'm finding is that some pretty important information with some significant changes is coming out on Friday, and we don't have an opportunity to get clarification. And for instance, it became like a big problem this past weekend as there was some pretty significant announcements that were announced at the end of the day on Friday that we couldn't get clarification for, despite programs starting up on Sunday or Monday. And so it left us really in a pickle because we didn't have clarity on it, and we had to make the best of the situation. So I just wanted to pose that to you guys there so that hopefully we can discuss before it goes on to the weekend for any clarification.
Thanks for the suggestion, Mike. It's something we can certainly talk about internally and try and figure out, where possible about sending a communication earlier. I know sometimes we're held up with the response times because, we'll have questions from today, for example. It usually takes 24 to 48 hours to get back to us, and then we have to take the steps of updating all our documentation as well. So, I think Wednesday may be a bit tough, but we can certainly look at the possibility of Thursday communications moving forward.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No worries. Thank you, Mike. So just some questions in the chat. So Amanda from SYSI asked, can 2 groups form a mini league together? So I believe that if there are 2 groups of, let's say, 25 each from 2 different organizations, I'm not sure what the specifics would be, but it's something that we can certainly ask. I think they've been looking more so as mini leagues being internal to an organization versus multiple organizations coming together. Nicole, do you have anything to add or change to what I've said?
I believe if 2, we can confirm, but if 2 organizations are from the same community, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be able to work together. It's when there's travel involved that I think there would be an issue. But that's definitely something we can confirm with the business response team.
Perfect. So Amanda, we will definitely add that to our list of questions to ask for them tomorrow, or ask to them tomorrow. And then I think there's a second question or a follow-up to that, or ask if the players can be a part of a collaborative group of 50 between 2 organizations. So we'll use some of the language that you've provided, and we will add that as part of our questions that we will send through tomorrow. Sean also, Sean Riggs from Aurora put in the chat, you know, just regarding wording questions to the business response team. So Sean will take the question posed and we'll pass it on to the business response team. So thank you for putting that in the chat. Frank Laturza from SDSARI, can a match official be replaced if the match official decides they do not want to continue officiating? Nicole, are you able to provide some insight on that?
So it would not be recommended to go above the group of 50 that you have. You don't want to constantly be adding people in, but if something were to happen and you were to be without a match official for your mini league, we would just want to stress that you would add another referee in that group that is not part of another league. So someone that's not currently active in a mini league. So it's not ideal to change people out, but we understand that things happen. So if that comes up, just make sure that it's someone that's not already involved with another league, if that makes sense.
Perfect, thanks, Nicole. Any other questions at this moment in time? All right, I'm hearing none, so we'll move on to a few more slides, but if you have any other questions, there'll be another time at the end of the presentation to ask questions. So Nicole, over to you.
Perfect. So I'm just going to talk briefly about MAP grant. I know we've brought this up a few times, but we want to make sure that all the member organizations are receiving the most out of their funding that they can. So saying that, if you were approved for a project back in May and you cannot complete that project due to COVID-19 or just because your priorities have shifted, I strongly recommend that you send me a revised application and we can look at getting something else approved. Also, if you have any additional expenses, which I'm sure you do, due to COVID, we can add those on to your application. So again, send me an email, or better yet, send me your application with those items added onto it, and we can get those approved. Those won't change your overall funding totals, but rather the expenses that you're approved to spend your funding on. And just a reminder that the deadline for the follow-up is coming up on September 30th. So in August, we will do follow-up webinars like we normally do. So if you have any questions about that. And we do expect that there might be quite a bit of over-submission funding this year. So that's what happens when not everyone spends all their money. It goes back into the pot. So you want to follow up for more than you were approved for. And I think most of you on the call have done MAP grant a few times, so you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, I recommend that you jump on one of those follow-up webinars. And does anyone have any questions before I hand it over to Eden on MAP grant? Perfect. Well, if any come up, we can always answer those at the end as well. So over to you, Eden.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the referee registration. The communication on Friday that came out that had a note on there regarding our referee registration fees for 2020. So we've decided that the fees will be reduced by 50% for 2020 registrations. Any prior registrations that we received before this announcement will be credited that 50%. Going forward, if there are any officials that do need to be registered in time to officiate during the outdoor season, they can do so by following the registration process. I put in some notes in there in case you guys forget. It has changed over since 2019 to the new ramp system. So the referees will register directly with their member organizations, and the member organizations will submit those referee registrations through the referee registrar report, and that will be due on September 31st. If you haven't seen our registration form, it is up on our website now with the updated fees for players and for officials, and that's just on our website, sassoccer.com, under member organization registration. Yeah, cool. If you could go over to the next slide. Thank you. Also, from our communication that was out on Friday is we are developing inclusivity and a diversity group. We're asking our members to step forward if they are interested in being a part of the group by completing the expression of interest form. I've linked it below here. It's also will be in our communications, and on our website if you want to find it easily. If you know of anybody who would really thrive within this group, please urge them to fill out the expression of interest form and we will contact them. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Eden. So just to reiterate a communication that came out not too long ago, provincials, our outdoor provincials, PSL and Soccer Day in Sask will be cancelled in 2020. I think we, on the previous call, had made mention that Canada Soccer has also taken the steps to cancel the 2020 Canadian Soccer Club National Competition as well. With regards to coaching education, still no in-person coaching education courses until further notice. Completion of the online portion of the stage-specific training is acceptable for this outdoor season, and CSA has postponed all their in-person courses until 2021. The Canada Soccer is also accepting applications for the online versions of the Youth License and B National Part 2, which were, the B License Part 2 specifically was going to take place here in Saskatoon this summer. So we're obviously saddened to not be able to have that in our backyard. However, both the courses will be delivered online. And these courses are geared towards technical directors and coaches that are full-time or part-time in the game. We encourage all member organizations to reach out to individuals that they believe who would be strong candidates and to apply as soon as possible, and they can do so through the Canada Soccer website. So with that, we'll take another moment to see if there are any questions. So any questions from anyone on the call at this moment in time? Frank from SDSRAI.
Thanks, Raheem. With CSA canceling out all in-person training, is that pertaining to referee entry-level courses as well?
Yes, actually. So they have sent a notice saying that there will be no in-person referee entry-level training either, as well for the remainder of 2020.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank. Kelly Villeneuve from Battleford. Hello, Kelly. Sorry, I'm not sure if we're able to get you. Hello? Sorry, Kelly, you're not coming through. Would you be able to type your question into the chat, and then we can potentially read it out? While Kelly's typing into the chat, are there any other questions at this moment?
There's a question in the chat from Saskatoon Adult here.
Okay.
In regards to the modification to the laws of the game, specifically with spitting, we already have a no spitting rule for games on the SSCI turf field. Players initially get a warning, and then if they repeat, a red card is issued. No additional game suspension.
Okay, so Ifman, that may be something that we can connect about. The information from Canada Soccer was regarding modifications to the laws of the game, and based on the way that they have explained it to us is that, like, for example, spitting on a field is not a red card offense. Spitting at somebody is a red card offense, and therefore, from a disciplinary perspective, that a red card provided for someone just spitting on the turf would not be upheld in an appeal if they were to ever, if that individual was to ever so appeal that decision up the chain. So that's perhaps something that we can definitely connect about. But I appreciate you letting us know that you do have that in place. You know, this is obviously something that we're trying to still better understand from, you know, the nuances surrounding the entirety of the situation with regards to spitting. But you know, let's just plan to connect about that and you know, have a conversation. Kelly has said no question. Thanks, Kelly. Your hand was raised, which is why I called on you. So my apologies. Any other questions at this moment in time? All right. So if not, then something that we wanted to take a couple of moments today to engage with everyone was really better understand where everyone is, and also perhaps having some updates from different member organizations. Nothing lengthy, but just sort of where you're at. When have you started programs? When are you planning on starting programs? What have been some of your challenges, but what have you also found working? Just so that we can share as a community of practice. So if there are no takers, we'll just ask a few people that I know are delivering programming and just ask them for an update. So any takers to begin with? Not hearing any. Hugh Dooley from QC, would you be willing to share with us where you guys are as an organization in terms of restarting?
We start on Tuesday, and I guess response has been about a 25% of regular membership, which we expected because we have a lot of, especially on our boys side of our program, we have a lot of players who play football. So they're getting ready to start up. So that's been a bit of there. Our uptake at U11, U13 has been very strong. Uptake at U9 has been low based on the numbers we usually have. But we're still getting a lot of feedback from parents who they're just not ready to get back out on the field quite yet. They're starting to feel better, but you know, they're just going to wait. Probably they've said they're going to wait till the winter. That's where we're at.
Thank you very much for sharing, Hugh. I appreciate that. Mike Jakubik from Yorkton.
Yeah, we're starting Monday. Same thing as Hugh there, about 25% of our numbers kind of registered. I would say 25% of people kind of came in contact with. Same thing, not comfortable playing yet. What else? It's actually kind of similar. Our numbers are actually trending quite similarly to Queen Cities, where U9s, there's not a lot. U9 down, not a lot. U11, U13 pretty strong, and then U15 and up, there's not much at all. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, Mike. I appreciate it. Rochelle from Hollandia.
We started yesterday. Our largest group would probably be our U13s and 15s. Lots of uptake. Everyone's just excited to be back out on a pitch and kicking a soccer ball around, even if it is staying in their own little box and working on technical stuff.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Ramiak at Eastside.
Yeah. So we started up with our programs yesterday. So we had our youth girls out yesterday. It was a great day. It was nice to connect with everyone. Found families were quite responsive to some of the measures we had in place. And then the boys, we had our U11 boys out today. Unfortunately, we got cut short by the lightning and we weren't able to do our older boys groups today, but we're looking forward to seeing them shortly.
How have you found registration so far?
Registration's been down quite a bit, like especially with the mini program. I think that just might be the structure in place. U11 is fairly strong. And then again, numbers die off towards U15. So.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, Mike. Sean Riggs, Aurora.
We started Sunday. We had under sevens. We just have the parent train with them in the box, so that was pretty positive because then the parents learn with the kids. So then if the kids are struggling, they can go home and work on it, and then you can actually play like kind of games with the parent or tag games with the parent. So it's a bit more fun for them. I didn't realize how dependent coaching under 7 was on tag games, so that's kind of been tough for me to figure out programming for that age group. And then we did some under 11s or under 9s up to under 17s the last couple nights, and everyone was just excited to be back on the field.
That's great to hear. How did the parents find being engaged in the session?
I think they all really liked it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing, Sean. Wendy, I think you gave us a bit of a brief update. So Wendy Wagner from Meridian Soccer, but do you just want to let us know sort of where you guys are at?
Yeah, I can. So we're going to run it a little bit differently. I based it off of economics. So all our goal is to have children return to sport. So we have cut our costs drastically in regards to registrations, and we're running it in a camp style. So 3 days a week, it's $33 for 3 days. And we really just want kids to come out and play within our community and make sure that going into indoor, we give a positive response in regards to that they can trust us with their kids, and that we get a comfort zone with our volunteers, as well as being able to mitigate risk.
Thank you so much for sharing. What has been the registration response so far?
We haven't had it open. It's going to open tomorrow. So
perfect.
I can give you an update after, but yeah, we've limited our numbers to 20 per group just because we want to be able to manage it easily. And then we'll go from there and see what happens.
Okay, well, best of luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Cheryl McGrath at Kindersley.
Hi, we just did out a survey. Initially, the board was thinking we wouldn't maybe do anything until we hit indoor, just given we're such a heavy farming community here that to try and do something towards the end of the season wasn't necessarily going to be feasible. But we did put out a survey to see what the take would be on doing something in September. And that has come back. Another board member had done the responses, but it's looking like we'll do some sort of 4-week program just for the month of September.
Okay, wonderful.
And then start our indoor.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Ifman from Saskatoon Adult Soccer.
Hey, hi. Yeah, so we are finishing up our budget. Our board is voting on it. What we're aiming for is an early August start. So what we're going to do, we kind of had a bit of a difficulty with roster sizes. Usually our rosters are 25 limits, so we had to split that in half. So we're going for 14 pools, rosters of 12. That allows us pretty much to maximize that bubble. So what we're thinking that, 12 rosters of 4, that's 48. And then we would have two officials that would pretty much split the workload of that bubble. So that would basically be 6 games each. And then, yeah, so I'm hoping that we can finalize an open registration by the end of the week.
Wonderful.
So it would be a half size field format, 7v7. And all of our games would be at the soccer center on the outdoor turf.
Wonderful. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Jerson from Saskatoon Futsal League.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, for futsal, we're just waiting to hear what the guess now with the indoor restrictions, what those will be, and hopefully we're able to provide some programming sooner than later in terms of futsal and just hopefully get kids out and playing. And especially we're trying to focus on outdoor. So in Saskatoon, we don't have outdoor futsal courts, but we're trying to be creative and find ways where we can still provide that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Jerson. Peter Morris, TD Soccer.
Hi there. Yeah, so basically, as a futsal academy, we're kind of like sitting on the outside now, watching the football guys, soccer guys, trying to start the programs on. And I know it's really difficult for a lot of you guys out there, and hats off to all you guys who are out there working under difficult circumstances. And our viewpoint is basically, we need soccer to get back going again, and you guys are doing a great job there. And basically, we're sitting, waiting, hoping that soccer will get back to some kind of normality for the indoor season. And when the time is right and ready, we will be back, to offer futsal programming for soccer players. So basically, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. And when we are ready, we will be back out there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peter. Frank, you've put your hand up.
I just wanted to share that the SDSRAI had sent out a survey to its members for match officials, and the match officials are eager to get back out onto the pitch and referee. Their feedback with regards to indoor programming is a concern still, but we plan to work with youth soccer in Saskatoon and Saskatoon Adult Soccer to provide matches for them to officiate following the guidelines with the provincial government and health regulations. So yeah, we're really invested to get them back onto the pitch and get officiating.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing the update, Frank. In the chat, Kelly Villeneuve from Battleford's Youth Soccer said, our developmental group is doing phase 1 programming, very little registration, about 20% of normal. We plan to do clinics end of August and then start indoor in late September, mainly U9 to U15. Amanda Probe from SYSI said that our Kids in the Park summer program, phase 1 for ages 4 to 12, was announced 1 week ago and is receiving positive responses and is 70% full within the program starting next week. That's wonderful to hear. There was also a question in the chat that asked about without an available MED clinic and a rush to get coaches certified for programming, there may be coaches going straight to the exam for $85, which is not recommended, and they may fail. Do you know if there are any resources to help with this prior to taking the exam? Actually, a wonderful opportunity for everyone would be if you contact Dave Robertson. He's the executive director at Sask Coach, or Coach Sask, the Coaches Association of Saskatchewan. You can organize an MED, a privately delivered online for up to a group of 12 individuals within your organization. And the cost for the online delivery is $350 flat. So if you have 12 individuals that are all taking the MED on the online like Zoom meeting, then it would actually work out to being less than $30 per person, which is obviously a big drastic difference to $85, for the exam. So we highly recommend that. Dave Robertson's contact information is available on the Sask Coaches website, and in this upcoming communication on Friday, we can reiterate some of this information and provide his contact information along with the cost and the minimum, or the sort of maximum requirement, which is you can't have more than 12 people on the course. So hopefully that answers your question. Frank, you have your hand still raised. Is there something else that you wanted to add?
No, I do not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Frank. So Marcus just put in the chat to everybody, just some information regarding the MED. I would just like to take a minute just to acknowledge all the work that everyone has done over the past, coming to close to 4 months now. It's been a very winding road over the past 4 months with the uncertainty of COVID-19, the suspension of activity, and slowly the resumption of, getting closer to normal life. So with different aspects of the phased-in plan from the Reopen Saskatchewan plan to the beginning of our sport. I just wanted to commend everyone on the work that they've done to put their organizations in the best position possible to safely reintegrate athletes into soccer programming. It is by no means a small feat. There is a great deal of work put in, and we're incredibly pleased to see so many organizations having completed the Return to Soccer assessment tool and receiving the scores that they are, and providing programming as we move forward. So just on behalf of myself and the rest of the staff and the board, we certainly appreciate all the work that all of you have put in. And with that, Nicole, if you can move on to the next slide. The next meeting is going to be scheduled for July 21st at 8 p.m. As we get back to the field, we'll continue to, as we always do, reevaluate if the bi-weekly meetings are still necessary over the remainder of the summer. And with that, I will kindly call on Lisa Bagan-Lurie, SSA President, if she would like to offer any closing remarks.
Thanks, Raheem. I just appreciate everybody's comments and questions tonight. We're all learning from each other. This is uncharted territory for everybody. So I appreciate everybody's participation and ability to move with all these changes, and as we learn more and more information as we go along. Thank you for everybody for taking everything in strides. It's been really good to work with everybody, and all these questions are helpful for everybody to learn. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your night, and I can't wait to see everybody back on the pitch.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lisa. And with that, if anyone has any further questions, just shoot me an email. Otherwise, we will call the meeting to an end. So thank you very much, everyone, for staying on. I've just got a question in the chat. So Amanda, if you're willing to just stay behind, I'll be able to answer your question. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Nicole and Eden, for adding in your bits and to the presentation as well. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you very much. Nicole, if you can stop recording, please.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Raheem, Nicole, Eden.